Alright, look, I like an artsy, layered film as much as the next guy. I like being able to dissect a film apart, do video essays on it for hours at a time, and go into the hidden, layered meaning behind a film. But sometimes there's a limit.
Stay away from me.
What are you doing now?
What are you?
So today we have men. I thought how appropriate in this film involving topics such as abusive men, toxic masculinity, femininity, to have Faye Valentine here with us today, which will make sense in time when I give you my review, but I just thought, to open with, it's clickbaity, right? I guess, sure, we all like Faye, right? This trailer hit online, and most people, a good amount of people actually saw this trailer. Marketing kind of said it, but people that saw the trailer really took this and ran with it. They were like, oh, the horror movie is just about men, and about men being bad. To generalize and be derivative. Women saw it and liked it, and then men such as myself, we get that there's a lot of shitty guys out there. We're like, okay, cool, this will be a cool concept to watch on film, psychological, horror, possibly slasher, but it's going to be layered and psychological because it's directed by, and I give you right here, Alex Garland. Now, if you don't know the name Alex Garland, I don't blame you necessarily. Kind of film heads know the name. You might know the movies, funny enough. I'm actually a fan of this man's filmography, but his two films that he did prior to this one, the first one being Ex Machina, artificial life put into a robot is created that is able to then pass the Turing test and gain sentience. And the question is, like, is she really sentient? Is she not? A lot of concepts explored in this. It's fantastic film, cannot recommend enough. Now, his second film, not received as well. I would argue it's still a very good film. My first viewing of it, I didn't quite get it myself, but once I did more studying into Annihilation and watched it again and kind of gave it another chance and looked more into it, Annihilation grew on me a lot. There's, again, like high concept science fiction, great performances, direction, etc. Again, crack film. Whether it's as good as Ex Machina or better is up for debate, but basically that's kind of this guy's style. So I knew what I was looking at getting into it. I was familiar with his work. I like his work a lot. I liked the trailer for this. I was down for it. The only name you might know, and this is a big might, I knew her only because I like watching all the films, but Jessie Buckley. If you don't know who she is, I think, so I didn't cover this movie on my channel, but I did do a commentary with the franchise on it. I did a commentary for this movie, and we watched it on Netflix together. She was the star, or one of the two stars, of I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which, again, first watch, if you're just kind of a casual moviegoer, you're going to be wondering what the hell is going on. So much philosophy and talking about life and existence and meaning and art, like a bunch of different stuff. But this actress has a habit of getting involved in films like these, it seems. Stuff that's very heady, very out there, very both philosophical, mental, deep dive, psychological, disturbing, uncomfortable. She's here for it. I do want to give a shout out to Rory Kinnear. Holy shit, this man plays so many people in this film and does each one individually great in their own. Just good job, just solid props. All the cast is great, but those are the two standouts. I mean, he's on the poster, for Christ's sake. Pros first, as always. Visually speaking, the film is beautiful. I love Alex Garland's direction with the films that he does. The color palettes in this film, visually pleasing, a lot of green, a lot of focus on nature, but at the same time, a lot of focus on kind of mood and tone and gender shown through color and lighting. I believe thoroughly that every scene in this film, for better or for worse, can be taken, pulled apart, picked apart, broken down, and interpreted in a visual sense, in an aesthetic sense, and everything about it can be broken down. Acting? Yeah. I mean, Jessie Buckley, I mean, she has a few really intense scenes. There's one she has probably within the first 30 minutes of the film, but she does this thing. She gets so angry that she almost can't verbalize the emotional expression. And that, like, I felt it. I don't get angry a lot, but there have been some times where it's a visceral feeling, and I've never seen somebody so accurately convey, like, it almost brought me to tears just from how angry and upset she got in the one scene. It's just, she's a powerhouse. I'm happy to see whatever she's in. But the whole cast does a good job, no complaints there. I've been telling people like this, the first act is slow burn, but I love the build up. It lays out the groundwork and the foundation for the setting, the characters, starts building up a little bit. The creepiness factor kicks in a little bit. You get about 20-30 minutes in, things are a little bit unsettling, you're a little bit uneasy, you get a little bit, it tries to calm you down, then immediately some like really creepy moments and shots. And I will say, to this film's credit, it does a very good job of giving you jump scares that aren't your stereotypical jump scares, like the ones that are normally big music or video audio cues. A lot of the creepiness derived from this film is just visually in what you see. I think it's pretty well done. There were some genuinely unsettling moments throughout the entirety of this film, but I think the best of them come from that like second-ish act, right going into the third act. I liked the story. I do love it when movies do this. Now, for better or for worse, again, we'll get to that in a minute, I love when a film will give you a trailer and make you think you know, like, most of the points of what's going on, what's gonna happen, the general idea of it. This did a really good job of giving you a trailer that enticed a lot of audience members, including myself, but when the actual film came to pass, there was some markedly different narrative, characters, and elements that were definitely not the vibe that I picked up from the trailer. So I'm glad and I appreciate the subversion there. I hate when a trailer tells me, like, oh, that's the movie. I hate it, especially if it shows you like big key moments or spoils too much. I hope more trailers keep doing this. I want you to show me an idea of the film you're doing, and then don't even use those shots. Maybe just use some of them, but like show me the movie that has the similar idea, but it's a different movie. Throughout the first two acts, I really like the concepts psychologically and emotionally that are explored. The trailer kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at, and they follow that for a majority of the film. I like how this is kind of going through her experience, her trauma, her grief, her emotional demons, and the psychological and horror concepts that are kind of applied in those first two acts I really enjoyed. I was curious as to where the movie was building up, where it was going to go to. I was in for the ride. Wasn't on the edge of my seat, but it was very tense and very unsettling because you know something's just not quite right. And the film does a very good job of holding you, or in this case it held me, in that kind of emotional headspace for more than half of it. But here's where things start getting tricky. The crazy thing is, I don't have a lot of cons, but the biggest con in this film, and again, this is for me, and it's just what ended up dragging it down for me. It's not a bad film. Do not mistake me. It is not a bad film. I will say this, your average audience goer is not going to enjoy this. This first two acts are a little bit too artsy, a little bit too heady. Not to say that people are too dumb for the movie. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's just literally one of those films where it's, if you're patient and you are here for a psychological evaluation via film, or rather like a psychological profile breakdown of somebody and their experience, not directly told in such, but more conveyed through the film and through the visuals and what happens. And what I'm saying is, a lot of what happens in this film has to be interpreted. The first two acts are pretty cut and dry, but when we get to that third act, oh baby, when the third act comes around, it's the Wild West. No holds barred. You're in there, you're surrounded by all these narrative metaphors and demons, and you gotta shoot your fucking way out of there. The sense of narrative progression of this film and the sense of what I thought the movie was doing in my head was under attack. Like, both good and bad. I love metaphors, I love visuals, I love it when my concept of the film and what the narrative is supposed to be is called into question. But it does it so severely in this that I was first thrown for a loop, and then I was confused, and then I was upset. I think it tries to do too much in the third act, and the narrative, or what there is of the narrative, is crumbling under that. That shouldn't be the case. You watch a crazy movie like Annihilation, or even one of my favorites I always love to go to, The Lighthouse, is a prime example of a psychological horror crazy throughout it. But even though I can't tell you 100% what happened in that film, it makes sense, I get it, and there's enough there where you can still interpret it into like one of a few possibilities, and it would make sense. It fits. The only solutions I'm left with as to what happened in the film by the end of the film, one is batshit crazy and doesn't 100% track, and makes it seem as if there's like an actual sci-fi threat in the film, without spoiling anything. The other one, which is why I'm wearing this shirt and is the more disturbing one, my biggest concern, and I haven't read a breakdown by the director, I'm just going based off of my experience of watching the film and a discussion with friends afterwards. My worry is that by the end of it, it's more like a psychological projection or construct by our main character as she processes her grief. But that paints it almost in a she's going crazy type of deal. And for a movie that we assumed was supposed to empower the feminine, I felt as if it had the opposite effect. So it's like, if that is the answer, which I sincerely hope it's not, and I hope that theory is incorrect, then it's just kind of a shitty way to handle that kind of film, especially given the film's subject matter. Might be a bit of a spoiler, but I have to say this because they don't make it very clear in the trailer, and I want to make sure that you're aware, because I have friends of the female variety and persuasion who have been through major physical and emotional trauma at the hands of abusers in the past. This film, major trigger warning. I don't use the term lightly either. There is not only huge themes, there is on-screen like depiction of physical and mental abuse. Not through like a lot of the film, but there's a few scenes where it's rough. Here's the thing. If you're like me and you love film and you like A24, you like aspects about it, if the trailer enticed you and you like that and you're excited for the film, I wouldn't want to dissuade you from seeing it. It is worth a watch, 100%. Did I love it? I'm up to watch it again, if anything, for further analysis. But if you're like a casual moviegoer and you're looking for a movie that the trailers were advertising to you, you're gonna be disappointed. But as usual, my reviews always reflected on two things, and that's personal enjoyment from moi and the film as a whole and its quality. I enjoyed my time with the film. I wish I could have a solid takeaway now and have like what I believe to have happened, but I can't. I don't. This is going to be a film where a month or two from now, maybe sooner, there'll be a video essay that breaks down all the core themes, concepts, tells me what I missed, talks about it, and I'll have a better perspective on the film, which going forward I can then apply to it, and maybe I'll love it a month from now. But as it stands, look, I can be smart on occasion. I can extrapolate and romanticize so much from film and hype up a scene to be much bigger than what it's supposed to be. It's very difficult for me to do this by the third act of this film. It doesn't go off the rails, but man, it really tries to. Visually, it's great. The soundtrack, great use. Another pro I forgot to mention, great use of vocals, used in the soundtrack, diegetic in the movie, creepy vocalizations, both male and female. Again, it all ties into the themes and the setting, the creepiness factor, unnerving, all that jazz. This film has a lot of good going for it. Visually, acting, the themes and concepts that it lays out, how it starts to do those, first through the second act, but that third act is just, I think the movie starts to kind of like suffer as a whole because of how it chose to end, especially the last 20 seconds of that film. I shit you not, the last 20 seconds of that film probably made me the most upset. Not for the reason that you might think, because I'm happy for the character, right? But for the narrative, I'm like, what the fuck? But I'll leave it at this. I will give you my rating I currently have, and I will give you the rating that it could be should I learn more and understand more about the film. Hell, I might even revisit this in the future. I don't know if I really will, but if I see something in the future that changes my mind dramatically, then I'll adjust accordingly. Long and the short of it, I give Men, from my current position, a very, very high 3 out of 5. I give it a high 3 out of 5, and that's exercising a very large amount of benefit of the doubt. High 3 out of 5. It is, even with the way that I feel about it, which is not, I feel dissatisfied with it, but I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time. I still think a high 3 out of 5 is fair in that it's still an above average film. At its lowest, at its weakest, it's an above average film. If you are your average movie goer, you don't watch a shitload of movies like me, but you enjoy cinema and all that, this is going to be questionable for you. If you're like me and you like movies, and the weirder the better, artsy, artistic, psychological, depression, grief, all this trigger warning, everything, you'll probably do what I did and at least enjoy your time. You'll have a time. You won't hate watching it. If I can avoid seeing the rating until I give my rating and then reveal the Rotten Tomatoes score at the end, I'll do that. Funny, it's about what I said. That's cool. So it's still certified fresh, but 76%. Audience score with about 100 or so reviews, 50%. So audiences didn't like I said, like your average moviegoer won't like it. Critic consensus, if its narrative and thematic reach sometimes exceeds its grasp, magnetic performances from its stellar cast help men make the most of its horror provocations. Precisely. That's the only downside to this film. It could have been a fantastic film, like a low 4 out of 5 for me for sure. But it tries to do a little too much, and by Act 3, I get it. I get there was a vision that was being put onto the camera. I understand that. I don't think it was handled as well as it could have been in Act 3. It got a little bit too heady, a little bit too I'm thinking of ending things. And if you've seen that movie, that entire movie is like the third act of this movie, so keep that in mind. That's the end of my review for Men. As always, thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. Myself and Faye Valentine wish you a good night, good day, what have you, and goodbye, travelers.